And welcome to the End Time Show for our channel. I'm Gerald. We'll be discussing actors and music artists channel demon spirits for fame, talent, and wealth. Now, I want to read a passage of scripture from Acts chapter 16, verse 16 that kind of relates to what's going on in today's time, and based on what we're seeing that some of these actors and these music artists are using demon powers to either work through them or work alongside them. That's either being via demon possessed or being influenced by demon spirits by having a demonic spirit as a spirit guide. Now, when we look at Acts chapter 16, verse 16, it says, "And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying." Now, as we can see, even in today's time, that these actors and these music artists are bringing their masters, which are over these movie studios, that are over these record labels. They're bringing them much gain. Similar to this woman that had a spirit of divination that Paul encountered in Philippi, she brought her masters much gain through that demon that was working through her, that was channeled through her. It was used to prophesy to people via demons. We can also see how Philippi, this woman that had a spirit of divination, relates to the oracle or the seeress in Delphi, which in Delphi was very well known, very famous. The oracle of Delphi was very famous because kings and wealthy men would travel to get positive prophecies. They would come to seek out knowledge and direction from this particular oracle. But these women, ironically, they would go up to the mount of Delphi, and it was believed that they would come to the cleft of the rock, and vapors would come out from the cleft of the rock, and they were intoxicated with the spirit of the god Apollo. And it was believed that once these women intake this particular spirit, that they had the ability to prophesy. And it was a known fact that this particular spirit, or what would actually occur, they would come under the influence what was a divining demon. So the demon spirit would enter into them, and they would begin to know how to respond. They would give all these different prophecies to these people, and eventually Delphi became a major banking system due to the fact that people were given all this amount of money to these oracles to get answers to questions that they wanted. And we see that's going on in today's time, how these industries are making a lot of money off the backs of these people via demon spirits. So we're going to further explore how spirit channeling works, how it works through people. We'll look at spirit guides, and trust me, people, it's going to shock you. Some of these people that you love and you treasure are working for the kingdom of darkness. Now, as we can see, a lot of these modern day actors and modern day music artists, they are being aided by demon spirits. Now, the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, they had a knowledge of using the demons or demons or the muses as a way of enhancing theatrical performances and performance in the arts by being aided by spirits. Now, we can even see that the great Greek philosopher Plato had this to say. He says, "The gods don't communicate to mortals directly, but intermediary spirits. So mortals need figures to communicate with gods, and thus the demon or the demon becomes the figure needed of the petition, a source evolving into sacrifices, initiation, incantations, prophecies, divinations, and magic spells and sacred poems. This is stated several thousand years ago by the great Greek philosopher Plato. Even Socrates had this to say about acting and his actors and acting. He says, "And I like the manner of the muse. First of all, it inspires men herself because they're inspired and possessed. They are simply inspired to utter that which the muse impels them, for not by art or knowledge you do say what you say, but possession." So these demons or demons were used through people for the arts and music and through acting and through divination, which we already explained when we did our introduction. Acts chapter 16 verse 16, it talks about how the woman had the spirit of divination. So this is nothing more than ancient spirit channeling that was occurring and what we see that's going on in today's times.
I'm Rebecca Ryan. I'm a shamanic witch in Melbourne, Victoria, speaking with you about channeling and in particular how spirits take over humans. How this works is you have certain boundary mechanisms inside yourself. These boundaries you'll feel will arc up sometimes if you're in danger, sometimes if you're not. So you might feel like a tingling or just a super awareness of where you are if you're walking around the streets at night, or you might be particularly aware if someone's looking at you across a room. So you have boundaries and you have internal technologies that keep you aware of whether your boundaries are being breached or not. When you drop a boundary, you are inviting things in. When you invite things in, they actually fuse and code with your consciousness. And so once in, often your body yourself no longer recognizes that it's not you. And so you grow fused with this other consciousness. How you drop your boundaries is anytime you're off your head. So we do that often with alcohol or drugs, music sometimes, sex sometimes. When we try and lift our consciousnesses or expand our consciousnesses, we run the risk of pushing ourselves past our boundary mechanisms. Once we are past where we usually are, we potentially are open. When we are open, what we try and be is open to things which are loving, or things which are kind, things which are good, or greater clarity, greater insight, etc., etc. However, at the point that we have dropped our boundaries, it's very hard to tell the information that's coming in, to see whether it's positive or negative on us. When we channel, often we are fusing, we are actively opening up our consciousnesses, and we are fusing with something else's consciousness. I would highly recommend that we clear our consciousnesses regularly by earthing ourselves. So that's a grounding system which takes energy out through our feet or through our hands back into the earth, and just checking whether we've had big changes in personalities, whether we have extra voices in our heads, whether the things that we think are more life-giving and more full of vitality or less. And probably checking regularly, particularly if you do any kind of healing work or hands-on work, because there is a fusing, obviously, through our central nervous system with what we're dealing with. So I recommend, if you're in a field where you're opening yourself up, or if you have habits or hobbies where you are consistently dropping the boundaries inside your head, to maybe have a daily or at least a weekly system which brings you back down through your feet and through your hands into the earth, and a shelling off of any other kinds of consciousnesses. So protection, banishing, resetting of boundaries, and maybe even some external check that you are still yourself, that you are still that you're still using your energy well, and you can tell that by how much vitality or how much life you feel inside of yourself.
You know, I would pray to him. You know, I would channel his energy. I would just ask to be around.
When did you feel it the most?
Honestly, it was when it was on the platform, and we're going to use it while the train wasn't running.
Yeah.
And tons of extras, limited takes, one camera, but that's where his presence was around me the most. I think at the platform for sure. It was it's that weird eerie feeling, but it was a good feeling. You know, I don't think I could have done it without him being there.
Him, Oscar.
Oscar, yeah.
The energy of Oscar.
The energy of Oscar, his presence for sure.
Yeah.
Actresses able to be so amazingly effective and convincing in their performances.
That guy was so electrifying that it came through the television.
How is it that they can move us to laughter, tears, or anger at the drop of a hat? Are they truly gifted with natural talent, as many suggest?
You see this and you're dazzled by their talent.
Do they possess a creative streak of genius that is unknown to most men? Or unknown to most men, are they in fact possessed? Is it possible that these actors and actresses are possessed by demonic spirits who have a specific agenda to fulfill? Oscar award-winning actor Denzel Washington told 60 Minutes exactly how he brings forth his best performances.
Basically what I did was got on my knees and sort of communicated with the spirits. And when I came out, I was in charge.
Powerful scene.
Powerful scene. I couldn't have acted that. I couldn't have written that down and made a decision to play that.
What, are you gonna smoke that?
Nope, you are.
Hell if I am.
Yeah. You're Jesus freak. You're Jesus freak.
The one-woman entertainment empire known as Oprah has strong affiliations with the demonic realm. The most familiar face on television says,
"You can not only use your body and physical self. This is how I see acting. I ask my body to be the carrier for the spirits of those who have come before me in a way that is most meaningful to the character. Just become the vehicle for that character."
Calling out for these entities to take her over so that she may become a sparkling puppet, Oprah admits of her work before the camera.
I tried to empty myself and let the spirit inhabit me.
With her global influence, her shows have become a
That was
smart.
one heck of a dream. Had that ever happened to you before?
Never before, never since. It was really a one-of-a-kind thing, and I'm just glad I didn't waste it.
That you didn't waste it.
Yeah.
Did you know that that the dream was meant to then become books?
Absolutely not. This dream was just something I was so interested in, and it so different from what my everyday was at the time. You know, something that was fantasy, and I just wanted to remember it so badly that's why I started writing it down. Not because I thought this would be a great story for a novel. No, it's just I don't want to forget this story.
So, were you a person who journaled or...
No, and I have a hard time writing about myself. People who don't exist, I can write for hours, but for myself, it's like, I just never know what to say.
So you'd never written a short story? You didn't want to be a writer?
No, I studied literature, and I love to read, but writing to me seemed, well, first of all, everyone knows you can't make a living at writing, right? So why do something that's so impractical? And then, it seems kind of presumptuous to me, like that anyone else would want to read the things that are in my head. I never thought of it that way.
And so how old were your children at the time?
Eli was 1, Seth was 2, almost 3, and Gabe was 5.
Wow.
They were
so
little.
This was 6 years ago before, you know, before you hit the big time. And at the time, when you started writing it, then did you think, okay, maybe it will be a book?
I didn't think about that until it was finished, because in my head this was not something that I was going to finish. It wasn't a book in my head. It was just
you were just
thing.
cataloging the dreams.
Right. Well, I did the dream, and then I wanted to see what would happen to them. It was just me spending time with this fantasy world. And when it was finished, it was like, this is long enough to be a book, even.
Wow. Now, I told you told my producers that you obviously weren't trying to write a bestseller, that you were trying to reconnect with yourself. And when they told me that, I really resonated with that, because I think so many women, I've done so many shows over the years with women who are doing the hardest job on earth, staying at home, taking care of their children, trying to do that well, and lose themselves sometimes in the process. Were you feeling that?
Well, I think that's part of the process. I think it's a necessary part. When your kids are little, their lives depend on you all the time, and you really have to just devote yourself to them. It's part of the job. And so who you are and kind of your imagination, all of that, you do have to put on hold, especially when you're not getting any sleep at all, and you know, your energy level to be able to just get through the day, that's all you can manage. And so a lot of who I was and my crazy imagination and that person was on the back burner.
Was on the back burner. Had you always had a crazy imagination?
I did, but I didn't know that about myself. I thought everybody was telling themselves stories all the time. I thought that was what we did. Yeah. And apparently that's not normal.
That's not, no. And what seems abnormal is, like, you weren't a person who liked vampires or hated vampires or sought stories about vampires.
Yeah, that's I read everything except for horror. That was the one genre I just knew I was too chicken for. So I don't know how they got in my head, because I really wasn't thinking about vampires at the time.
So what did you grow up reading and that you loved?
I read a little bit of everything. When I was really little, my dad would read to us at night, and that was sort of my introduction to books. And he would always read what he wanted to read, so it'd be some big, thick book. And he'd stop at the most exciting parts. So I'd have to go into his closet in the daytime and flip through and read. And I sort of skipped over that whole phase, like, shouldn't I be in picture books? So when I was 8, I was reading Gone with the Wind and Pride and Prejudice and all that, and not knowing that that wasn't my reading level.
Oh, you are a black belt reader.
That you've referred to as nouveau shamanic, is that correct?
Yeah.
What are the core principles?
I've been told that all actors really hail from the early medicine men and the shamans in the villages pre-Christianity, where they would put on masks and act out, and really they were probably pretty crazy, but they would go in and find answers to questions. Today you're called psychotic if you do that. But it's all semantics. So what I would do is I'd put on Afro-Caribbean paint, like a white and black paint, and black out my eyes so I look like this sort of Afro-Caribbean voodoo icon. And then I would sew in bits of Egyptian artifacts that were thousands of years old into my costume and gather some onyx or tourmaline or something that was meant to have vibrations. And who knows if it works or doesn't, but for me it was an idea of like trying to stimulate my mind or trick my mind into believing I was this character from another dimension. And I would walk on the set and then wouldn't speak to anybody, wouldn't say a word, so I projected this aura of horror, which created fear in my fellow actors, which then inspired me to believe I really was this character.
Exciting. I'd love to be on set with you.
Yeah. Received an unprecedented and record-breaking 9 Grammys. But are you aware that Carlos Santana is a mere tool of the spirit world, that he admits assigned and designed a project fittingly called Supernatural?
Music is the vehicle for the magic of healing, and the music of Supernatural was assigned and designed to bring unity and harmony.
Santana actually admitted that he is being used by a spirit that identified itself as Metatron. Metatron has been associated with the eye in the triangle in occult history. In occultist Aleister Crowley's teaching, the eye in the triangle represents Satan himself. Santana stated, quote, "I know it sounds new age, but in my meditation, this entity, which is called Metatron, he said, we want to hook you back to the radio airwave frequency. We want to reach junior high schools, and universities. Once you reach them, because we are going to connect you with the best artists of the day, then we want you to present them with a new menu. Let them know that they themselves are multidimensional spirits with enormous possibilities and opportunities. We want you to present them with a new form of existence that transcends religion, politics, or the modus operandi of education today. This country was founded with the Bible in one hand and guns in the other." Carlos Santana said that these spirits, which as we shall see in a little bit, were actually devils, had supernaturally brought different musicians to him and worked in the musical arena to bring them all together for this Landside album appropriately called Supernatural. Santana said, "I heard this entity wanted me to know I would be hooked up with the right writers, musicians, and producers for the purpose of reaching high school and college kids, so my inner instructions were clear." He said that Eric Clapton wanted to know if he could play on the album. He said all the people who played on the record said that they had heard my music before I called them, or that I appeared to them in dreams or something. Santana said they knew what was coming before they got the call. Santana admits that he is channeling music from the same spirit entities that used Jimi Hendrix, who himself claimed to be demon-possessed. He said, quote, "There is an invisible radio that Jimi Hendrix and Coltrane tuned into, and when you go there, you start channeling other music." Santana told Rolling Stone magazine, quote, "You meditate and you got the candles, you got the incense, and you've been chanting, and all of a sudden you hear this voice, write this down." Santana described receiving information from the spirit world like a human fax machine.
He sat me down and he told me that he had done his meditations, and that he had spoken with his wife, and that he had spoken with the angels, and they had come to him and they had told him that this is what he needs to do.
Santana's angels are really devils who are using Santana to communicate Satan's age-old lie that we are gods.
Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I want to get tapped into what he's doing.
You don't ever forget the sound that you hear first inside. Then it goes through your fingers, through the guitar, to the amplifier, to the speakers, to the monitors, up into the PA. it hits the people, 550,000 people.
Santana even reveals the true identity of some of the spirits who are using him. He says, quote, "The energy of the devils and the angels is the same energy. It's how you use it. It's fuel. The halo and the horns are the same thing. Geniuses don't have time to think about how it's going to be received. They don't have time to think whether people like it or not. Is it morally right? Will God like it?" Santana said, "I'm seeking to validate angels and devils with the same reverence." He said, "It's okay for your nipples to be hard and for you to be foaming at the mouth and you're really aroused." He said, "I'm not afraid anymore of those perimeters."
I read where you said that when you start playing, you undergo a transformation of sorts. What happens?
When playing on stage, Santana goes through what appears to be a demonic transformation. He says, quote, "I'm not Carlos anymore." He says, quote, "When I see it on TV, it's like another guy playing." Santana sounds a lot like John McLaughlin, who Santana cut an album with, who stated, quote, "When I let the Spirit play me, it's an intense delight. My role as a musician is to make everyone aware of his own divinity." Santana declared that when he and Eric Clapton got together to perform for the album Supernatural, they were, quote, "calling out the spirits." Rob Thomas, who sang for Carlos on one of the songs of the album, said that Carlos sat him down and told him about the power of their music. He said that Carlos told him that, quote, "The record was put together just so, through sound, it could change people's molecular structure. And he sat me down and explained to me that as a musician is what we do."
There's something about music that makes your hair stand up. Behold, it rearranges your molecular structure.
Roman is a crazy boy who lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say. He was born, just a few months ago. I think he was born out of rage. He was conceived in rage, so he bashes everyone. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent.
That must be nice to have, like, an ignorant loudmouth who you can just sort of blame every...
He wants to be blamed. I don't want to blame him. I ask him to leave, but he can't. He's here for a reason. People have brought him out. People conjured him up. Now he won't leave.
When I performed Crazy in Love at the BET Awards, it was almost like my coming out.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for my girl, Beyonce!
I was very nervous,
So crazy right now.
of course.
Most incredible.
And I remember when they told me I was performing on BET, in my mind I saw the set immediately. I said, I want something big. I want something that says I'm here. Beyonce. And I drew it out. I drew out the ramp. I drew out the boxes for me and my girls. I drew out the lift right in the O. It just so happened that O was right in the center of my name for me to come down. I knew the dance. I knew about the pumps. I saw all of that in my head before it happened. And it's great when you visualize something and it actually comes to life.
Come on! One more time!
When I talk to my friends so quietly, who even did it? Look at what you did for me. Tennis shoes don't even need to buy a new dress. If you ain't there, ain't nobody else to impress.
It was way better than I expected. And Sasha was in full effect. Sasha is my alter ego. And when people see me, sometimes I think that when they meet me and they speak with me, they're expecting Sasha. And I'm really kind of shy, and not really shy, but more reserved, and nothing like Sasha. But I guess I wouldn't be very entertaining on the stage, so Sasha comes out, and she's fearless. You know, she can do things that I cannot do when I'm in rehearsal. I mean, I can try, but then it just doesn't happen. I can sing notes and sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do. And I remember right before I performed, I raised my hands up, and it was kind of the first time I felt something else come into me. And I knew that was going to be my coming out night for the BET Awards.
I'm looking so crazy in love. Got me looking so crazy in love.
past 3 years, George Harrison of the Beatles has been contacting and appearing in David Young's life in spirit. For no apparent reason, George selected David, a Grammy-nominated songwriter-musician, to be one of the conduits for his music and message for humanity. Before his introduction to Harrison's essence, David had produced 55 CD albums and sold 1 million copies of his flute and guitar music.
Your miracles always put smiles on my face.
David was clueless as to why he has these ever-increasing experiences with George.
I didn't believe in channeling. Really bizarre stuff started happening in my life. I didn't understand it because I wasn't a big, gigantic Beatles fan.
Over 100 true life miracles have occurred, many of which are chronicled in his recently released book, Channeling Harrison, Book 1.
How in the world is the music supposed to go for these words? And at that exact moment when that sentence finished, the Spirit appeared in my room and played guitar for me, and I heard it completely clear. This piece of music twice. And my guitar was right next to me. I picked it up, I started playing this, and those words went perfect with that music.
David will share with you the amazing messages and the beautiful music that George has blessed him with. David will entertain and inspire you when he plays his 2 Renaissance flutes in harmony at the same time. Even Paul McCartney gave David a standing ovation. Come join David for an extraordinary experience that will fill you with joy. Come see David's connection with George Harrison. Make your reservations now, and you'll never be the same.
I feel like, Sinatra, in my time, modern day Sinatra, so, I try to live up to that, I get possessed by the spirits. So
how I came about being a lyricist is weird because I started out technically, like I used to write all the time, before I started going into the Rain Man thing, So I really started out just being technical, and then I got real life experience. So my thing was to tell a story and still, make it rhyme. That became pretty much how I really started. And then I started doing, these different, hidden messages in the music, just as that replaced, the technical aspect of it. And then it just, evolved from there. So